chapter 25. Look at that. Canto 4, chapter 25, verse number, starting with 2 at least. The characteristics of King Puranjana. So we heard yesterday, Maitreya is speaking to Vidura. He had just finished the song of Lord Shiva given to the Prachetas. And now a new section. Narada is going to make a visit to King Prachinibari. So, my dear Vidura, in this way Lord Shiva instructed the sons of Barishat. The sons of the king also worship Lord Shiva with great devotion and respect. Finally, Lord Shiva became invisible to the princes. Text 2. All the Pracheta princes simply stood in the water for 10,000 years and recited the prayers given to them by Lord Shiva. Purport. Of course, in the modern age, one may be amazed how the princess could stand in the water for 10,000 years. However, living within air and living within water is the same process. Semicolon, one simply has to learn how to do it. The aquatics live within water for their whole lifespan. Certainly, favorable conditions are created to enable them to live within water. In those days, however, people used to live for 100,000 years. Out of so many years, if one could spare 10,000 years for the sake of austerity, he would be assured of success in his future life. This was not very astonishing. Although such a feat is impossible in this age, it was quite possible in Satya Yuga. So it's a detail, an important detail. Standing in the water, living within the water sound quite different. So did they just stand in the water, or did they immerse themselves in water, living in water? The answer is they lived in the water, and saying stand in the water, that's what it means. Just ask our artists who asked Prabhupada, what does it mean? They were in the water, immersed in the water. Text 3. Yeah. When the princes were undergoing severe austerities in the water, their father was performing different types of fruitive activities. At this time, the great Saint Narada, master and teacher of all spiritual life, became very compassionate upon the king and decided to instruct him about spiritual life. Purport. As pointed out by Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, Kaivalya, or merging into the Brahman effulgence, is just like going to hell. He similarly states that elevation to the upper planetary systems for the enjoyment of heavenly life is just so much phantasmagoria. This means that a devotee does not give any importance to the ultimate goal of the karmis and gyanis. The ultimate goal of the karmis is promotion to the heavenly kingdom, and the ultimate goal of the Gyanis is to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Of course, the Gyanis are superior to the Karmis, as confirmed by Lord Chaitanya. Koti karmanishta madhye eka Gyani shrestha, or one Gyani or impersonalist is better than many thousands of fruitive actors. Therefore, a devotee never enters upon the path of karma or elevation by fruitive activities. Narada Muni took compassion upon King Prachinibari, when he saw the king engaged in fruitive activity. In comparison to mundane workers, those who are trying to be elevated to the higher planetary systems by performing yajnas are undoubtedly superior in pure devotional service. However, both karma and gyan are considered bewildering features of the illusory energy. I want to read what Narada says, the first verse, text 4. Narada asked King Prachini Barishat, "My dear king, what do you desire to achieve by performing these fruitive activities? The chief aim of life is to get rid of all miseries and enjoy happiness, but these two things cannot be realized by fruitive activity." Purport. In this material world, there is a great illusion which covers real intelligence. A man in the mode of passion wants to work very hard to derive some benefit, but he does not know that time will never allow him to enjoy anything permanently. Compared with the work one expends, the gain is not so profitable. Even if it is profitable, it is not without distresses. If a man is not born rich, and he wants to purchase a house, cars, and other material things, he has to work hard day and night for many years in order to possess them. Thus, happiness is not attained without undergoing some distress. Paragraph. Actually, pure happiness cannot be had within this material world. If we wish to enjoy something, we must suffer for something else. On the whole, suffering is the nature of this material world, and whatever enjoyment we are trying to achieve is simply illusion. After all, we have to suffer the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. We may discover many fine medicines, but it is not possible to stop the sufferings of disease or death. Actually, medicine is not the counteracting agent for either disease or death. On the whole, there is no happiness in this material world, but an illusion person works very hard for so-called happiness. Indeed, this process of working hard is actually taken for happiness. This is called illusion. Paragraph. Therefore, Narada Muni asked King Prachini Barishat what he desired to attain by performing so many costly sacrifices. Even if one attains a heavenly planet, he cannot avoid the distress of birth, old age, disease, and death. Someone may argue that even devotees have to undergo many distresses in executing austerities and penances connected with devotional service. Of course, for the neophytes, the routine of devotional service may be very painful, but at least they have the hope that they will ultimately be able to avoid all kinds of distresses and achieve the highest perfectional stage of happiness. For the common karmis, there's no such hope, because even if they are promoted to the higher planetary systems, they are not guaranteed freedom from the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. Even Lord Brahma, who is situated in the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, has to die. Lord Brahma's birth and death may be different from an ordinary man's, but within this material world, he cannot avoid the distresses of birth, old age, disease, and death. If one is at all serious about attaining liberation from these miseries, he must take to devotional service. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma Karma Shime Divyam, Evam Yoveti Tattvataha Chakva Deham Purnar Janma Naiti Mamiti Sorjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. O Arjuna, Final paragraph, short. Thus, after attaining full Krishna consciousness, the devotee does not return to this material world after death. He goes back home, back to Godhead. That is the perfect stage of happiness, unblemished by any trace of distress. Often Prabhupada would refer to the Vedas as a science. Of course, that can mean different things to different people. Science has knowledge, and science can be verified by practical application of that knowledge. And those are two criterion that he would use for expressing the Vedic wisdom as a science. Within the Vedas, there's these divisions commonly expressed. There's the unregulated, of course, those that don't adhere to the Vedas, but those that adhere to the Vedas, karma, gyan, and bhakti. Sometimes the fourth that's presented in that mix is dhyan. But dhyan can be a subset of gyan, and dhyan can be a subset of bhakti. So it can stand alone or not, depending upon circumstance and the preference of the categorizer. But it's generally three, bhakti, karma, gyan, and bhakti. So Narada is an agent of bhakti, and he has compassion because he's a great bhakta, and he's the deliverer of this whole line of kings coming from Brahma, Uttanapada, Dhruva, and everything. This is Canto 4, going back to Canto 3. These explanations are given. So he has compassion, a natural compassion, and he has the capacity to deliver. And I really appreciate and express many times, he's really very versatile. He's not the same thing for everybody. According to the person, he knows the person, and his presentation is according to the person. And King Prachini Bari has ancestry that he knows, and the ancestry of King Prachini Bari, they're great devotees. However, he has some affinity. Doesn't say how that unfolded, but he has some affinity for that portion of the Vedas that deals with fruitive activities. And what's his the question is, what's your expectation? Now, people do things in general to get happiness. And the analysis of this whole section is, where is the happiness in the temporary? A and B. There is no happiness, because it's not what happiness is. Senses interacting with sense objects and calling that happiness is not happiness. Happiness is something else. And then the second is, even if there's a buzz that says happiness, it's not permanent. Now you see it, now you don't. Just like a magician. A magician shows you a hat. It pulls the hat inside out. It's just a hat. And then presto, he pulls a rabbit out of the hat. He shows you the rabbit, holds the rabbit by the ears, puts the rabbit back in the hat, and the rabbit's gone. Pulls the hat inside and out, and the rabbit's gone. Magic trick. So pulling a rabbit out of the hat is like finding happiness in the material world. It appears to be, but it's phantasmagoria. Prabhupada is not quoting the exact phrase of Prabodhananda Saraswati, but we know the phrase. The Kaivalya Narakayate, Kaivalya is this merging with Brahman. Naraka is hell. Why hell? Sounds nice. You know, some persons, that's their thing. They want happiness in merging with Brahman. Well, when you compare merging with Brahman, which means in the material sense of what merging with Brahman means, that's cessation of the misery of material existence. Cessation of the misery of material existence doesn't mean happiness. But when people want happiness and they don't know what real happiness is, it's cessation of the misery of material existence. Brahma Sukh. Sukha, happiness. Happiness of identifying oneself with Brahman. Jiva Goswami makes a very nice explanation. I like. Supposing someone becomes Brahman realized. Where's that person who becomes Brahman realized? Where's that person who becomes Brahman? They may say, where's that person who becomes Brahman realized? Of course, you could say, where's that person who becomes Bhagavan realized? But where's that person who becomes Brahman realized, first of all? And what is that Brahman realization? It's cessation. It's neutral. So, in the, I'll say it slowly. Within Krishna's internal potency, or spiritual potency, or antaranga shakti, or swarup shakti, all those terms mean the same thing. Chit shakti, there's 5 terms. There's divisions. There's Sat, Chit, and Ananda. And if one experiences the Sat feature, there's no Chit and no Ananda. There's no Ananda. There's no happiness. And even in the Chit sense, because Chit is knowledge, and what is real knowledge is not just I'm eternal. It's true that we're eternal, but it's not real knowledge or the full sense of what knowledge is. Knowledge means to know the source. Supposing one doesn't have knowledge of the source or doesn't have the Chit potency. Chit potency comes from those who follow the path of Dhyan, and they connect with the Supersoul, and from Supersoul comes knowledge, the knowledge potency. The knowledge, I'll say it in reverse. Knowledge potency comes from Supersoul. Supposing one doesn't have that, they just have Brahman. There's no real happiness. Ananda hasn't even entered into their experience yet. So their definition of happiness is the cessation of material suffering. And for them, that's it. That's happiness, Brahma Sukh. It's not happiness. It's definition by negation, cessation. Prabhupada's explanation, very simple. Bang your head against the wall. Oh, it hurts. Stop banging your head against the wall. Brahma Sukh. That's not real happiness. It's just stop banging your head against the wall. That's not what real happiness is. And the again, the sort of Shakti of the Lord doesn't present, they're not contacting the Ananda feature, the real happiness feature of the internal, the spiritual potency of Krishna. No real happiness. No real happiness. And what it is, again, the same point as just repeating, whatever it is experience, it's fleeting. It's now you see it, now you don't. There it is, and now it's gone. And then there's lamentation, oh, it's gone. Sukha dukkha. The nature of, so those who are interested in karma kanda rituals like King Prachini Bari, he wants material sukha. And the material sukha is in this life prosper, in the next life heaven. So do the rituals that bring upgrade in this life and heavenly destination next life. So where's the happiness? My dear king, why are you doing this? He doesn't have to persuade him to stop being a Gyani and striving for knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. There are persons that have that penchant. That's not King Prachini Bari. He's a devotee, but covered and mixed. So Narada's function in relation to the king is to relieve him of that misconception that their happiness is out there in the material sphere. His strategy of getting the king to that point of realization is very creative. You know, completely characteristic of Narada, very creative in his methodology. He's like a superlative preacher, Narada. And he's very compassionate and very powerful. Imagine being visited by Narada Muni. Rings your doorbell or knocks on the door and you invite him in, and what's he going to give you? Going to give you the topmost thing. But to get King Prachini Bari to the topmost thing, it takes several chapters. By telling a nice story, a history of a fiction person. And that fiction person is the king. But it doesn't say that person. Later he says that person is you. Or the soul that's searching for happiness in the temporary. Because King Prachini Bari is a devotee, although covered and mixed, when he understands what Narada is explaining, he's able to leave the fruitive activities and, like his sons, take to the path of exclusive devotion. Now, we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we're hearing the same message, and what about us? Are we prepared to leave, as King Prachini Bari did, to leave a life of fruitive activities? Mm-hmm. We have to hear it many times and cross our fingers and hope, kind of thing. But it's not. The bhakti process is not a mechanical process. It's not just hear the story enough times and now you're liberated from the misconception that there's happiness in this world. The hankering for happiness, misguided by a material conception of what happiness is very strong. The affinity of a conditioned soul for matter is very strong. Trying to be the enjoyer, affinity. The imitation, Purusha, affinity. Really strong. Even in life of mixed devotion, which is where most of us are. Not yet pure devotees, we have mixed devotion. And so there's a lingering expectation that I'll get some material happiness. And if I don't get material happiness, I have a negative feeling, a negative emotion. Oh, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with the process, or there's something wrong with that person. They're interfering with my getting real happiness. It's none of those things. And how much, from our side, how much are we desirous of real happiness? Like, it's important. I'll just share something. On Monday morning, spent some time with the Chinese devotees on what our acharyas have to say about the teaching of Buddha, aside from ahimsa. What is there within Buddha's teaching besides ahimsa? There's things. And one of the essential things, amongst others, is what real happiness, the wish to end suffering, and the absence of suffering is then defined as nirvana. Nirvana is enlightenment where there's no more suffering. Suffering is gone. And then you're in nirvana. Suffering gone completely. So it's just, and that's happiness. But what's that happiness? Nothingness. And so forth. I spent a fair amount of time Tuesday going over a book, a full, explanation given by Srila Prabhupada's sannyas guru. Prabhupada's sannyas guru was based in based in Mathura at the Keshava Gaudiya Math. Keshava Gaudiya Math is one of the names of the Gaudiya Maths of Bhaktisiddhanta. He, Prabhupada's sannyas guru, was a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, and his sannyas name was Bhakti Pragya Keshava Maharaj. And he wrote a book called Beyond Nirvana. So I spent a good part of the day going through his book. And his book is analyzing Buddha's teachings and the methodology of his teachings, the language of his teachings. And there's many things in the book besides what I'm saying, and then, how does this compare with the methodology and the teachings of Shankaracharya? And he makes it really, really clear, like super clear, with lots of refined Sanskrit terminology, etc., that Shankara simply used the same strategy and practically the same concept. He just replaced nirvana with Brahman. Negation, getting nirvana. Negation, to get Brahman. And that what's Brahman is happiness, Brahma Sukha. And what's nirvana? It's happiness, the bliss of nothingness. The bliss of nothingness. Excuse me. Anyway, the impetus for Buddha, this Gautama Buddha particularly, the son of a king, he was a prince and he saw suffering and he didn't want that life. So he left the kingdom, went somewhere, and did, followed a process that gave him nirvana. And then he wrote teachings about suffering and becoming free from suffering. So I'm mentioning that because it's right in the purport. There's no freedom from suffering by karma kanda. Even if one is successful. So the heavenly realm, there's no freedom from suffering. There's a sense of greater happiness, but that sense of greater happiness is not freedom from suffering. Because the principles of birth, death, disease, old age prevail, and everything that is there is also taken. Whether it's here or there. The same principle. Staying within the material realm is not elimination of suffering, nor is it real happiness. That's such an important lesson. So then what's the other option? We heard this Monday morning, one of the issues of Buddhists was they were opposed to karma kanda rituals. Remember that from Monday? There was a leader in the place where Lord Buddha did his achieving nirvana is Gaya, and he became militant and wanted to stop the followers of karma kanda rituals at Gaya. One of the rituals is worship of the forefathers, offering shraddha to the forefathers for their benefit. Stop it. And then the comment was, unfortunately, they were also averse to bhakti. They're averse to bhakti, which means they're averse to the source of real happiness. This is, now going back to the statement, this is a science. So there's karma, there's gyan, and a very, very strong emphasis on the importance of gyan for a practitioner of Buddha. What to speak of a practitioner of Shankaracharya's teaching, study of Vedanta Sutra. Cultivate gyan, become very, very strong in the essence of the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, towards the end of cessation of suffering and experiencing Brahma Sukha. So we're not engaged like that. The point that Prabhupada is making is, according to Prabodhananda Saraswati, Brahma Sukha pursuit is hell. Why hell? No devotional service. No devotional service. Take a person, put him in a straitjacket, blind him and gag them and put him in a padded cell. Brahma Sukha. It's prison. It's hell. Suffering. Just, under the brand of Brahma Sukha. It's hell. And no service? No, thank you. And then the process of karma kanda, pushpa akash. Pushpa, we know, it means flowers. Akash means sky. Flowers in the sky. Are there such things as flowers in the sky? It's using Prabhupada's word, phantasmagoria. Nothing more than phantasmagoria. Push flowers in the sky. And so the happiness that comes from attaining heaven, pushpa akash, phantasmagoria, is not what real happiness is. So therefore, Prabhupada's statement is the devotee has no interest in the fruits of karma and gyan. We don't have interest in the fruits of karma and gyan. What's left? Well, it's not definition by negation, that's for sure. Not this and not that. Then what is it that the devotee is interested in? They're interested in pleasing Krishna. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. It's very simple. That's the essence of bhakti life. Using the senses to serve the master of the senses. And A and B. Misery, suffering, one transcends. You can say they're gone. Or you can say you've transcended them. Though the body may get pains and pleasures, you may get hungry, you may get this and that, but one transcends it. And you recognize it's there, and you transcend it because the positive. There's a happiness in serving, and there's a happiness, a transcendental happiness in serving the Supreme. And when that is in the Kevala Bhakti phrase, the stage, absolute devotion, then there's no bumps. Just this morning, I was listening to Prabhupada describe, it takes intelligence to build an Asuric civilization. It takes intelligence to build skyscrapers. It takes intelligence to build airplanes. But then from practical experience, riding in the airplane is sometimes rough and sometimes it's wild and it's very dangerous. But we're riding on this earth planet and it's not bumpy and wild. It's very nicely managed. It's temporary. Let's not, live on the earth planet and that's happiness. We live on the heavenly planet and that's happiness. But, the minimization of happiness is not real happiness. Making the connection with the source of everything in the mood of loving service, that's real happiness. So that's the message that Narada wants to deliver. That's the message of these next chapters. And a very creative way of getting there. King Puranjana. That's the title of the chapter. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. Vishaka, please give him. Thank you.
Maharaj, I see just by looking at different types of gatherings that people are looking for something else, but somehow the tendency is to impersonalism. That, for example, there is a lot of music. A lot of people are chanting different mantras, and it's all toward like Om Namo Shivaya and so on. And those people who follow these musicians, they focus on something undescribed, like. And I see it as a trend, even in Poland. When I know people, different type of people, artists and so on, and almost everybody has the tendency to light, energy, and so on. But they don't. It doesn't seem that they. Even if you talk to somebody and you tell him, look, but there has to be some personal aspect of that happiness and so on. So somehow they as if they don't want to approach that idea that you are still a person, an independent, living entity. So
why?
Yeah, why people are reached that point and they don't try to go beyond. Just like, oh, it's so nice and we meditate and it's the energy and so on. But like for me, I met Buddhists, different type, and I was never satisfied with their explanation. I was like, okay, but it has to be something else. Maybe this was because I grew up in a Catholic country where
Yes.
there is personality.
Yes.
So I was never satisfied with chanting mantra, and then what's the purpose of that and that?
So you want to know why is it like that?
Yeah, why is it like that? And for example, when I go to a couple times I went to a gathering with most of them were impersonalists chanting different mantra. And I said, I'm Vaishnava. I chant Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, Govinda, Jaya, Jaya, and they were singing with me. But I told the organizer, I'm not gonna chant different mantras because I'm not interested in, you know. So why is this?
Tendency.
What's the base? Yeah, what's the base of the tendency? Why not this?
Well, there's different ways of answering that question. Here's a few. It's Kali Yuga. And what's Kali Yuga? It's darkness. And it's a form of darkness where one wants an alternative, and the alternative is an alternative that's darkness. But, that is to say, it's not light, but it's a reflection of what light is. It's not what real light is. And such persons, they don't have, it's negation of the misery, and that's happiness. So it's a Kali Yuga influence. Now, it's not to say that before Kali Yuga happened, there wasn't an idea of impersonalism. There are lots of teachers and teachings of impersonalism, which means it existed before Kali Yuga existed. But why is it prevalent today, the influence of Kali? That's one of the explanations. Another explanation is lack of devotee association. For example, Prabhupada was fond of saying, here we are in Boston, one Catholic priest in Boston asked Prabhupada, what is it that you're doing that, these young boys and girls that are part of your Hare Krishna movement, they weren't coming to our churches, and now they're mad after your form of worship. What's the magic? What makes the difference? What makes the difference was Prabhupada's association. And because of Prabhupada's, the association of a bhakta awakens bhakti. It's negative. Without the association of a bhakta, bhakti doesn't awaken. So if there isn't sufficient association of devotees, then this other negation of the material expectation for happiness is spiritual, taken as spiritual. I want an alternative. Without the sufficient association of bhakta and bhakti, that's where people go. And then the next question is, why are they, even if they hear, they have an aversion? Like, just not interested. It's Kali and covering, and why is it that the people that are materialists stay being materialists and don't go towards light? Because they have some affinity for it. Long conditioning. So people there's abundant sound vibration out there about, becoming one and all that stuff. And what does that mean? And how do they live their life any differently than what they were doing yesterday? Not really. It's just, platitude. Just a sound vibration that has no real meaning to it. Bland. So in other words, saying the same. Where's the person who's Brahman realized? Where's that example? So there's verbiage about it, but it's not. There's no example. So the why now, why and what to do. What to do is become a pure devotee and extend bhakti. I just saw this little exchange yesterday. A picture of Prabhupada boarding an airplane, and the little caption is, someone asked Prabhupada, why do you travel so much? And Prabhupada's answer is to give you an opportunity to stop traveling through the 8,400,000 species. So it's because he had that compassion and, the real thing, the real bhakti. It was powerful, and people were attracted that weren't going to the churches, and churches closing and abandoned and so forth and so on. It's Kali Yuga. The interest, mandasa mandamatayo mandabhagya yupadrata, it's a symptom of the age of Kali. Spiritual inclination is diminishing, and replacement for that spiritual inclination is negation. The influence of Kali. And Kali's laughing. Ha ha ha. He's not a nice person. Personality of Kali. And it's his age. Romper room. He's having a great time. Spinning people's heads. And he's good at it. So, that's why and what to do. Become a pure devotee and give Krishna bhakti as best you can. And as you try to do that, you'll feel inspired. I have to make my bhakti stronger, and I have to make greater efforts to give. That's the follower of our founder Acharya, because that's what he did. That's the solution. During Prabhupada's time, there was what became known as Hare Krishna explosion. And after Prabhupada's departure, there was, imitation of Prabhupada. And, the Hare Krishna movement expanded to some degree, numbers of devotees and temples and things and projects. And then there was a kind of collapse because those persons were imitation. They didn't hold the stature, but they were imitating the conduct. And then so sag. My sense is bhakti is expanding, but it's expanding in a different way. Here's for example, the message of the Bhagavatam to diminish the influence of Kali is the presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, there's persons inspired by a particular person, Vaisheshika Prabhu, that have resulted in unprecedented numbers of sets of Srimad Bhagavatam being distributed. And some places are picking up on it more than others, but it's bringing light in this dark age. And so then after people have the book, then they have to be helped, hand-holding, to read the book and then apply what they're reading. So that's a bhakti effort. It's one thing to distribute the book, which Prabhupada wanted. For that reason, the antidote for the age of Kali is Srimad Bhagavatam, explicitly. And kirtan. And that's a type of kirtan. And it's going to grow. And through that, the Hare Krishna movement will grow. It's going to grow maybe in a different way than its growth previously, which is quite okay. The way people can take it is the way that people can take it. We missed you on Monday evening. 150 people. You remember going to Northeastern?
Yes.
150 people. And the discussion after went on for, as long as I would have stayed there, I would be still there having conversation with people. So something's happening. No, it's different in different places, which is fine. But there's opportunity. It's stick-to-itiveness and purity, and but it's going to make an impact. So those people that have this other sound vibration that they're accustomed to hearing, the impersonal thing, they're getting a bhakti opportunity. So that's what we have. That's what to do. Give bhakti opportunities. Be Narada Munis and Prabhupads and emissaries of the bhakti message. And then there are amongst those people that have that inclination for impersonal, it done properly with purity, etc., they'll change horses. But if without that opportunity, it's going to keep growing and growing and growing. Have anything online? Yes, let's do the online microphone.
First question from Adi Govinda Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much for sharing the analogy of airplane and earth. So if I understood it correctly, is that comparing karma and jnana?
No, it's comparing, the imperfection of human creation compared to God's creation. No, it's not that the earth doesn't undergo some troubles, but, the imperfection of man's creation. That's how Prabhupada was presenting it. It takes intelligence, and then, there's supreme intelligence, and our intelligence can't match. Imitation intelligence doesn't match. Next.
Next two questions are from Shrida Prabhu. Guru Maharaj, I was speaking to a Buddhist.
So you're speaking to whom?
A Buddhist. Those who are following.
Buddhist? It's a brand of Buddhism?
Yeah. While distributing books last week, I explained to him the process of reincarnation, showing the transmigration of the soul picture, and explained to him about the Hare Krishna mantra. He chanted, but refused to take the mantra card. So I told him to connect himself with the spiritual sound of whatever faith he is in, which he appreciated. Could I have done something better in such situation?
Depends on the person. I mean, something else you can do is, since you accept that sound vibration has its benefit, you could offer the suggestion. Try this sound vibration you like, and try this sound vibration side by side. You do a little experiment. And he can say no, but you're being respectful of what his views and values and everything, and you're just inviting him, it's done cordially, and because there's a basis and a foundation for this that comes from very ancient wisdom. Try it. Nothing lost, and just make it experience. And so that's it. No, that's one option that comes to mind. Be respectful. Don't push. Be inviting.
My second question is that what is the fate of one who realized Sat and Chit? Do they become devotees or impersonalists?
Well, they don't become devotees unless they have association with devotees. The realization of Chit doesn't mean one becomes a devotee. So it depends if they have association of devotees and if they say yes. Next. That's it. Anything else in the room? Yes. Radha.
Hare Krishna. My question is about other religions.
I can't hear you.
If other religions have their mantras and they actually follow their religion properly, which like loka do they go to? Do they go to Goloka or like Vaikuntha or something?
You're mumbling. I can't understand what you're saying.
So
But yeah, you're not shy, so please.
if
If.
other
This is an if.
religions,
You're not making a declaration. It's an if. Correct?
yeah,
Yes.
if other religions have their religion and they actually follow it properly,
Yeah.
do they go to Goloka or like Vaikuntha or one of those planets?
Okay, nice question. Long ago, Rupanuga Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple, temple president in New York where I was, he wrote a question like this to Prabhupada saying, if there is such a thing, and Prabhupada's reply was, if there is such a thing, then where does that person go? Prabhupada's answer in this one letter, there may be other answers in other circumstances, they go to Brahmaloka. Now, normally, heaven is the promise. But if they become perfect, if there is such a thing, they go to Brahmaloka, where they can continue, they don't have to, but they can continue perfecting their bhakti and return to the spiritual world. But the promise is heaven, not Krishna Loka. There's other times he gave different answers, but I like that one. Okay.
But like Christianity, like they worship Christ
Yes.
and God is basically Krishna. So
Their idea is, it's sorry to say, but it's a little impersonal because Christ is a person, but they see the Son of God and God as one entity. Absolutely not different. Now, it's not the concept, the Vaishnava concept, the Vedic concept that the Son is the representative of the Father, and thus there's a oneness between the Son and the Father. Not that concept, but absolutely, Christ is God. Now, question. Many years ago, somebody had my phone number, a researcher student from somewhere in the Midwest. I forget where. And he wanted, can I interview you? Yes. Where'd you get my number? He got my number somehow. So, what's your view on Christ? I said, you're probably not going to want to hear it. He said, no, go ahead, try me out. So I said, he's not God. He's the representative of God. And the representative of God is to be seen as God, but not literally non-different than God, but the representative, transparent representative. And he said, I've found very interesting. What you just explained is exactly what Eastern Christianity says today. Whereas in the West, it's got morphed into this other idea that Christ is God. Absolutely 100% God. God incarnate. That's Christ. As if God has a material body, but that's their idea. That's the brand that's over here. And there's another that sees as we see. So the answer to your question is depends on the brand. Their faith and their practice, and it's not only the practice but the concept behind the aspiration. What's their expectation? Sankalpa. Their hope, depends on the brand. Their hope is eternal life. But what's that eternal life? It's this place. It's just superimposed in that place. I didn't go, but some years ago, there was a group of devotees at the Commonwealth Avenue Temple. They went Adi Keshava was the GBC, and they went to a place where there was some, I forget what you call it, 3D experience from some religious organization. And the religious organization 3D experience was like this. Here's a family, nice member of this particular religion, sitting at a dining room table, eating what the people eat, and the Fido under the table, and so on. And they finish their meal, they get up from their meal, they go to their car, they're going to go somewhere, and they're driving at night, and you see some headlights, and then the lights go out. There's a big crash sound. It means they all died in a car crash. And it's like dreamy music for a while. And then the light starts to come on. And there they are in heaven, sitting around the same table with the same Fido, with the same turkey on the table, or whatever it is. And that's the destination of, if you become a member of this faith, you go to, same family, same, everybody looks the same. That's heaven. It says heaven, heavenly experience from this place to that place. So there's different concepts depending, and that's like, how much money they spent on that 3D thing. The wraparound sound, and you're there. You're part of it. Experience. So there's many, too many ideas of what's heaven and the destination if you're part of this faith. And then there are different ideas of what the faith is, and different ideas of following the faith, and kind of, all over the place. But you're back to your question. If one actually follows, and my answer is it depends on what they're following, what their sankalpa is, what their concept of heaven is. The Vedic is very clear on what to speak of the kingdom of God. Very clear. A whole chapter, description of the kingdom of God, 3rd canto. 4 Kumars at the gates of Vaikuntha, what's inside? Not heaven, Vaikuntha. Very clear, not big. Okay, behind you, way in the back. You have something more, Radha? No. Okay, pass it back. Hare Krishna. You're on. We hear you.
Yeah. So, I'm confused.
You?
Yes. Between different teachings or that I'm hearing from lectures, I want some clarification. So, one is the fruitive activities and devotional service. So, on one side, we being the souls, we can't be without desires. So if we try to take to the desires, and I'm hearing that whatever desires that we should have, we should connect with Krishna. And while trying to connect with Krishna, while trying to please Krishna to get the favors, and I heard on Sunday you said we may be in mixed mode, that although we may connect to Krishna, but in the course of doing so, we'll be satisfying our desires. So is that right attitude consciousness? And also,
before you go on to the also, can I reply to the first one?
Yes.
I'd like to edit your statement that I said, but if I said it, I misspoke, or you misheard what I said.
Or I misunderstood.
Okay. It's not whatever, some desires belong in the garbage can. Some desires belong in the garbage can.
Okay.
We hit the delete button and we don't act on them and try to dovetail, stealing or, something sinful. Without austerity, not acting on animal tendency, there's a place, let's say, there's a place for anger, there's a place for transcendental, deception. It's not the rule, but there's a place for it. You're just like, okay, I've got a tendency to lie. So let me find out a nice way to lie. It's not okay. However, there's a way that, in the example of our acharyas, there's some exceptional examples where they misled others for the purpose of nurturing their bhakti life, nurturing their bhakti creeper. Sanatana Goswami is an example. Right?
Sanatana Goswami, what example?
What example? When he told the Nawab that he was sick,
Yes.
or
Yes.
he told the jail keeper, here's what you can tell the Nawab, here's so many gold coins, bribery. So, we don't encourage those things. But in his case, it's cool. Or Yudhisthira telling a lie under Krishna's instruction. And so there was a purpose behind. Krishna could have done the same thing in a different way, but there was a purpose. So when Yudhisthira did, that's cool. But it's not the rule. So back to the editing, it's not that we have some desire, just have to figure out a way to connect that desire to Krishna's service. That's not the... If we have a mix of, let's say, I want to enjoy. So, for example, I like to eat. So let me connect that I like to eat something nice by learning the art of making something nice for Krishna. And then taking the prasad of Krishna. But as that tendency becomes matured, it's not how I enjoy the taste of something that now, because I've offered to Krishna, is cool. It's the happiness of Krishna. So there are things that can be, Bhakti Siddhanta's term is dovetailed. There are things that can be dovetailed. People like music. So in this room, we have at least two, very involved musicians. And they like it. So learning how to do that for Krishna, because that can be offered to Krishna. But some things you can't offer to Krishna, so you hit the delete button and throw it and go in the garbage can. Is that clear?
Yeah. Yes, Maharaj. While doing that, so what should be our consciousness like?
Which? Am I doing which?
In trying to praying for some devotional service, like at the same time, I'm also hearing we should accept Krishna's mercy on his terms, not on one's own terms.
Yeah, you've heard me say that before, I think. Yes, I agree. Now, what's your question?
So, but when we try to when we offer prayers, we should also accept that. I mean that okay, I should accept Krishna's mercy on his terms. At the same time, I should express my prayers.
Well, you don't have to. You can, or you don't have to. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't say, "Here's my terms." He said, "Whatever you want."
Okay.
So you don't have to. You can. Krishna, this is what I want. But you don't have to. It's not you're spanked if you say what you want, and it's not if you get 5 gold stars if you don't. It's the mood of love.
Okay, Maharaj.
What did Mother Sachi? Anyway.
No, please go ahead, Maharaj.
Huh?
Please go ahead, Maharaj.
Narada Muni, Dakshi, please bring back my son.
Right.
So one can ask. It's not, it's shameful. Okay?
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Are you unconfused now? Are you unconfused? Your confusion is now gone?
Right. I should not make any terms to Krishna.
That's Shuddha Bhakti. But again, one can be a Shuddha Bhakta, one can be a transcendental, perfect devotee and make some request. Okay, I think we're going to end. Srila Prabhupada ki
Thank you.
jai.
Jai.
Shobhat Samrat ki
Jai.